Hello, I'm Pastor Nanette Christofferson, and along with Pastor Steve Talmadge, we offer these short Bible studies on our lectionary readings. This week we find ourselves in John chapter 10, verses 1 through 10, called The Good Shepherd. Our commentary this week is by Elizabeth Johnson of 2017. If we look to Easter Sunday 4, or the fourth Sunday of Easter, and that's where we're at this week, you will always see that we have Good Shepherd Sunday. This is year A, so we happen to be covering the first 10 verses. Year B is 10 through 20, and year C is the rest of the chapter. I know it's hard to remember from where we're at from year to year, so I hope you have time to read this whole chapter through during this week. But for today, we're just going to take a look at John chapter 10, verses 1 through 10. Very truly I tell you, anyone who does not enter the sheepfold by the gate, but climbs in by another way, is a thief and a bandit. The one who enters by the gate is the shepherd of the sheep. The gatekeeper opens the gate for him, and the sheep hear his voice. He calls his own sheep by name and leads them out. When he has brought out all his own, he goes ahead of them, and the sheep follow him, because they know his voice. They will not follow a stranger, but they will run from him, because they do not know the voice of the strangers. Jesus used this figure of speech with them, but they did not understand what he was saying to them. So again, Jesus said to them, "Very truly I tell you, I am the gate for the sheep. All who come before me are thieves and bandits, but the sheep did not listen to them. I am the gate. Whoever enters by me will be saved and will come in and go out and find pasture. The thief comes only to steal and kill and destroy. I came that they may have life and have it abundantly." So we have an interesting transition here from John 9:41 on the discourse of the man born blind to now Jesus as the shepherd and the gate. So as we think about this commentary, maybe our question should be, what does it mean that Jesus chooses this portrait of himself as the shepherd and the gate when it comes to interpreting the healing of the man born blind? Perhaps as we go through this short commentary, our question will be answered. So how is this connected to John 9? As Caroline Lewis rightfully emphasized, this discourse of Jesus follows directly after his healing of the man blind from birth to John 9. Through chapter divisions, though, this might seem a little obscure, as there's no break after Jesus' comments to the Pharisees in 9:41. Rather, Jesus launches immediately into his discourse about sheep and gates and shepherds. The shepherd discourse, then, interprets the sign that he has enacted in restoring sight to the blind man. Although there is no one-to-one correspondence between the elements of the metaphor and the narrative it follows, certain associations are hard to miss. The Pharisees, who have interrogated the blind man in John 9, are supposed to be the shepherds of Israel, those who care for, protect, and nourish the people. Instead, they expel the healed blind man from their community, refusing to believe that Jesus and his healing work come from God. They are more concerned about guarding their own power and authority than about the well-being of the people. So as we look to the blind man, what is salvation for him? Having already restored the sight of the man, Jesus seeks him out again after his expulsion from the synagogue and brings him into the community of his followers. For the blind man, salvation is not only receiving his physical sight, but also spiritual sight, recognizing who Jesus is, believing in him, and becoming part of his community. He followed the voice of Jesus before he could see him, and it led to new life. His days of isolation are over. He now knows himself to be a valued member of Jesus' flock, cared for and protected. Jesus focuses on gates and the Good Shepherd. The focus of this portion of John 10, however, is on Jesus as the door or gate of the sheepfold. Admittedly, the image of Jesus as shepherd makes for a far more natural comparison than comparing Jesus to a gate. And how can Jesus be both at the same time? These two images are part of a richly layered, extended metaphor that speaks of sheep, shepherd, gate, gatekeeper, strangers, thieves, bandits, and wolves. All of these, except for the wolves, are introduced in the first 10 verses, and all of the elements of this extended metaphor contribute to the understanding of who Jesus is and who we are in relation to him. Jesus begins by describing what he is not and who he is not. Those who climb into the sheepfold in a furtive way are thieves and bandits who do not care about the sheep, but only about their own gain. By contrast, the sheep enters the sheepfold openly, by means of the gate. He is recognized immediately by both the gatekeeper, who opens the gate for him, and by the sheep who know his voice. When he calls his sheep by name, they follow him, and he leads them out to pasture. The sheep will not follow a stranger, but instead will flee from one whose voice they do not recognize. At this point, the narrator comments that those listening did not understand the figure of speech that Jesus was using. Rather than change tactics, Jesus doubles down on this figure of speech, saying to them, "Very truly I tell you, I am the gate for the sheep." He describes all who came before him as thieves and bandits to whom the sheep did not listen. Again, Jesus says, "I am the gate," and then adds, "Whoever enters by me will be saved and will come in and go out and find pasture." Whereas the thief comes only to steal and kill and destroy. Jesus says, "I came that they may have life and have it abundantly." As we take a look at the gate, the function of the gate is to keep the sheep together in the sheepfold during the night, safe from thieves and predators. During the day, the gate is open so that the sheep can go out, following their shepherd to find pasture. The gate and the shepherd work together for the well-being of the sheep, so that the flock thrives. Jesus is both the gate and the shepherd at the same time. He guards and protects his sheep from danger, and he provides for their nourishment, for their life in abundance. So, what is the purpose of the gate? It is important to note that the metaphor of the gate is not one of exclusion, not a license to think of ourselves as Jesus' true sheep and others as outsiders. If we use it that way, we become like the Pharisees who expelled the blind man from their community. The purpose of the gate is not to keep out other sheep. Indeed, Jesus says in verse 16, "I have other sheep that do not belong to this fold. I must bring them also, and they will listen to my voice. So there will be one flock, one shepherd." Rather, the purpose of the gate is to guard against all that threatens the well-being of the sheep, thieves, bandits, and wolves. So one of the big themes of John's chapter, or really of the Gospel of John, is abundant life. And so I think it's important to ask the question then, what then is the life in abundance that Jesus promises? The whole of John's Gospel is focused on this gift of life. In John chapter 1, verse 4, "In him was life, and the life was the light of all people." John chapter 3, verse 1, "For God so loved the world that he gave his only Son, so that anyone who believes in him may not perish, but have eternal life." That should be 3:14. "I am the resurrection and the life. Those who believe in me, even though they die, will live." 11:25. "And this is eternal life, that they may know you, the only true God, and Jesus Christ, whom you have sent." Chapter 17, verse 3. Life, or eternal life, in John's Gospel is not just about life after death. It is life that begins here and now. It is knowing the one true God and Jesus Christ, whom God has sent. It is knowing the voice of the Good Shepherd who truly cares for us. It is life in community, finding security and nourishment as part of the flock. It is life that abounds in meaning and value and endures even beyond death. Much has been written about how sheep are rather unintelligent animals. It is true that without a shepherd, they will not necessarily be able to find food or water, and that they will easily get lost and not be able to find their way home. However, the thing that Jesus emphasizes about sheep is that they know the voice of their shepherd. Whatever else one can say about the mental capacities of sheep, they have this in their favor. They recognize the voice of the one who cares for them. They follow their shepherd, but will not follow a stranger whose voice they do not know. So what about us? Whose voices are we listening to? Do we recognize the voice of the Good Shepherd? Or do we prefer to listen to lots of other voices that we think might know our names? And the second question is, do we recognize the voice of the Good Shepherd over all the other voices promising abundance? And I think that question requires some food for thought, doesn't it? Whose voices are we listening to either think that we can have abundant life? It might be through material things. It might be prosperity gospel. It could be through a lot of things that we think might be the good voice, but are actually misleading us. And so how do we prevent that from happening? We dig in the Word and we listen for the voice of the Good Shepherd. I pray that you all have a wonderful, blessed week, and that you have time to dig into John chapter 10, read the whole chapter. And I hope that as you read it, that you might see something new in it. Blessings to you this week.